xenophobia, and paranoia play a subliminal part, while others cling, with increasing alarmism and instinctive adherence to Washington, to a dangerous, old-school Cold War narrative about authoritarian regimes in general and China in particular. The world has moved on. In the grand sweep of history, Western dominance has been brief, and the American-led order considerably shorter. China has been the world's top economy for most of the past 2 millennia. Its time has returned. It will shape all of our futures. Pragmatism, strategic realism, and sensitivity, not moral judgment and binary analysis, are a more prudent and profitable response. The West should look to the future, especially in Asia, and treat with reservation the clarion calls of the anti-China enthusiasts. We should be vigilant, of course, but we should also be clear-eyed about the mixed legacy of the United States, wary of the soundness of its judgments, and sometimes skeptical of its motivations and interests. And perhaps we should recognize that America's fatal attraction to overreach has itself hastened the changing world order and its own loss of leadership. Hawthorne Hill, Mount Wilson, Easter, 2020. Introduction. Why did Simon Chesterman and Michael Byers, writing in the London Review of Books 2 decades ago, say that one might well conclude that the greatest long-term threat to peace is the United States of America, undeterred by rules and procedures, driven only by the inconstant winds of its own self-interest? Why did Lord Christopher Patten, last governor of Hong Kong and now Chancellor of the University of Oxford, say that, around the world, America is seen more and more to contravene the principles it enjoins others to follow? And why did the 2013 Wynne-Gallup International poll, based on a survey of 67,806 respondents in 65 countries, record that the United States was the greatest threat to peace in the world today? Perhaps the starkest recent remarks have been those by Donald Tusk and Thomas Friedman. Tusk, then president of the European Council, said that, "What worries me most is the fact that the rules-based international order is being challenged not by the usual suspects, but by its main architect and guarantor, the U.S." And Friedman, respected columnist for the New York Times, remarked that, "We are in danger of losing America as an instrument of moral authority and inspiration in the world." This book is in part an exploration of the historical basis for those fears and apprehensions, how the high standards and treasured principles set in place after World War II were ignored, how perceptions of self-interest have operated to the exclusion of international laws, norms, and conventions, how hubris and hypocrisy replaced idealism, how adherence to the rule of law became selective, and how the authority and leadership of the United States have been diminished. It is also a look into the future, a future dominated by Greater Asia in general and China in particular. This is not a comparative exercise. I have focused on the role and example of the United States and on the qualities of leadership that must sustain power if it is to generate respect rather than resentment, if it is to be a force for good rather than an incitement to terrorism. Effective and enduring leadership requires restraint, as well as standards of behavior higher than that trodden by the crowd. This is what Lord Bingham, the greatest English jurist of the modern era, had in mind when he wrote in the context of the debate over the invasion of Iraq and the scandal of Abu Ghraib that we cannot commend our society to others by departing from the fundamental standards which make it worthy of commendation. China and Russia are, of course, selective in their adherence to the rule of law, but only the United States has routinely endeavored, frequently with disastrous human consequences, to transform other countries in its own liberal, democratic, capitalist image, or believes and insists that its values and way of life are universal, or that it, above all nations, has a responsibility to act in the general interests of humankind and its own security. Only the United States has purported for 75 years to be the leader of the free world, whatever that outdated phrase may mean today. Andrew Bacevich, the celebrated soldier historian,